Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Life and Dating After Divorce podcast. It's such a pleasure to be here with you again this week. I'm Shade Curry. I'm your host. I am a life coach for divorced women. I help them rebuild, heal, date again, really go on that journey of reclaiming everything that they want in their life after divorce. So today I want to talk about a cognitive bias that I am constantly reminding my clients about when they're dating and talking to my clients who are either married or in the middle of a divorce about. And this is the halo effect. It's a very old, well, when I say very old, I mean like 100 years. This is an old psychological concept that really people have known forever. And I think we're all sort of familiar with it, but we don't realize just how often it's impacting what we're doing in our relationships. So first of all, let's talk about cognitive biases, right? We have a mammalian brain, and what our brain tries to do, and I think almost every living creature's brain, whatever size it is trying to do this. It's trying to keep them safe. It's trying to keep them safe from predators. Like we all have a self-preservation instinct that causes our brain to work in certain ways. And with humans, our brain tries to sort people into boxes. And of course, there's a lot of things that come out of that, but it's not because people are trying to be evil. It's because our brain is trying to very quickly determine whether the person it's looking at is friend or foe. Because in a split second, if you can't tell the difference between the snake with the red, blue, yellow stripes and the black, blue, red stripes, right? You could get bitten and you die. And so we are the descendants of the humans who are most quickly able to sort animals, berries, trees, and other tribes into friend or foe as quickly as possible. So when you meet a person, your brain is trying to determine in a split second whether this person is a friend or foe. Except that we no longer live in the environment in which that sort of gut instinct works in the way that it was designed to work. So we were in those situations, we were trying to determine whether it was life or death. That was it. Now we're trying to determine, especially in dating and relationships, am I going to be happy here? Does this person have the capacity for my happiness? Is this right for me? It's a much more nuanced situation, right? Is this a deal breaker, or is this something that I can learn to live with this person? And so what you're trying to use something that's a split second activity designed to sort people out in a split second, you're trying to use it in a situation that's much more nuanced, that is going to take a lot more time and proximity and analysis and self-reflection and situational awareness to understand whether it's a yes or no. When people tell me, hey, my gut instinct told me that he was a no, I'm like, he's probably a no. I tend to agree with my clients most of the time when they tell me a person is a no. But what I want them to do is figure out why. Why was he a no? Because that is where the learning is. And we'll get to that in a minute. So as humans, we've developed this cognitive bias. Or there's a whole plethora of cognitive biases that we use, right? And just to define them simply, it's when our brain makes an error in the way it sees something, or in the way it interprets something, or in the way it judges something. And that error causes us to misread the situation. So where our brain fires off, it's this whatever process it is, and we make a decision based on that subconscious firing of this mammalian brain process. But then it's misapplied. And so the halo effect is one of them. And what the halo effect is it comes from the paintings of the old, saints. When you look at like Mary in the Madonna paintings, she would have a halo around her head. Jesus would have a halo around his head. Saints would have a halo around their head that says, oh, this person is a good person. This person is good. This person is virtuous. This person is safe, right? Now, what we tend to do with this is we take one quality. So the definition of the halo effect is that we take one shining quality about a person that we meet, and our brain then generalizes that one quality to say, oh, overall, this person is right for you. Overall, this person is good. Overall, this person is okay. But it's basing it on one quality, and it's a cognitive bias, so you don't realize that you're doing it. If you go on social media, people talk about things like this when they talk about pretty privilege, where pretty people are given more privileges. They're treated with more kindness. They're given passes when they do things wrong, versus someone who may not be classically pretty is given a lot less grace, given less privileges, not giving things for free. The same goes for like when a person is taller. So if I think the statistics are like 90% of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are 6 feet tall or over. So there's some, maybe it's 10, 80% or 75%. But the percentage of the population that is over 6 feet tall is like 14%. So there's we over-index on the things that we can see. So our brain says, oh, this person is 6 feet tall, they must be competent. And we don't realize, we think that we are evaluating them based on their credentials and their track record and their portfolio. But really what's happening is the subconscious cognitive bias has kicked in. This person is competent. And then we justify that decision with things that we then see on their resume and things like that. So the halo effect is when you, now I'm going to give some examples just to clarify. The halo effect is when you take one quality about a person that is positive and then generalize it to also say that they have all these other qualities that may be ambiguous at the time. You may not have concrete information about those other qualities, but we decide that they have them. I see this a lot with my clients. They will meet a guy and, there's that first date. And maybe he was funny and he was kind and he pulled out their seat and he walked them to their car and he paid for dinner. And they will take those incidents of politeness and etiquette and generosity and extend that to his personal character. They will say, oh, he paid for dinner. And then they will take that one incident of generosity or, etiquette and say, oh, he's generous. The fact that a man paid for dinner this one time or even 2-3 times, even 100 times, does not necessarily mean that he is a generous person. That is it means he paid for dinner. It could mean that he's generous, but it could just mean that he's personally principled about paying for dinner when he goes on dates. Both things, they're very different. If he might be doing it out of his personal principles, or he might be doing it because his dating coach told him, make sure you pay for dinner. Or his mother told him, make sure you always pay for dinner when you take a woman out. Now, if he's doing it because his mother said, make sure you always pay for dinner, that is not necessarily a person who is generous, because generosity is a willingness to share. So a man might pay for your dinner every time you're dating up to when you get married, and then refuse to share other things that he needs to share with his life partner when you get married. And so the halo effect is taking that one good quality. So this is not knocking a man who pays for dinner. That's wonderful. That's actually really cool. But then to extrapolate that into other qualities can cause you to misread the people that you're dating. It can cause you to stop evaluating things that you need to evaluate. And this is typically where I get into it with my dating clients, is not that we're criticizing the man for the thing that he did. It's to say, hey, that's wonderful that he did all those things. However, I want you to keep evaluating all the other things that you want in a partner. don't extrapolate that into other areas. And that's so hard to do. It really is hard to do because our brain doesn't want to be on that. It doesn't want to do that work. It doesn't want to do that work of observing. It just wants to relax and enjoy. And listen, I get it. When you're on a date, when you're in the dating process, you want to have fun. You want to be like, oh, this is so cool. You don't want to feel like you're on high alert. You don't want to feel like you're closed off or on guard. And there is a way to do this without being on that high alert, hyper vigilant, on guard. Like there is a way, and I will coach my clients through to the place where they're like, listen, you're relaxed. It's not that you can't just be relaxed and chill. It's just that when you observe, as long as you don't make any extra judgments or any extra character evaluations, you can enjoy yourself all that you want. And so there's a process by which, they can coach to the place where they're relaxed while also holding space for what they don't know when they're with a person. The halo effect also happens in marriages, in difficult marriages, and during the divorce process, especially for women who have been socialized to minimize things that are happening to them that are harming them. So I will encounter a woman who is going through a marriage and it's very difficult in many areas. And when we're talking about, or when she's talking about the things that are happening that are wrong, she'll say, well, he did this, he did that. This was kind of hurtful. This was painful. I think this is going to, this particular thing he's doing is going to lead to this other thing that's not right. But he's a good guy. He provides really well for his family. So they'll take the one thing that person does well and almost use it to erase all of the harm that's being done. Almost like they don't give themselves permission to say, you know what, he is a good provider. He does pay all the bills. However, all of these other things are also happening because both things can be true. A man can be a good provider. He can even be a good father and be an unkind spouse, an unkind partner. He can be good provider and a good father and cheat on his wife. So many things can happen in the same space because we're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with robots, and human beings are complicated and complex. And we have to allow for that complexity. A lot of the times we are trying to have this checklist and check it all off and be like, okay, if he checks these 10 things, then everything else is fine. Or being black and white thinking, if he is a good provider, then he's good. And I don't need to be thinking about all these other things. Or on the flip side, you have what's called the horn effect, which is like the opposite of the halo effect, where the person does one thing wrong. And then or one thing that we don't understand, or one thing that it maybe is mean. And then we're like, oh yeah, that one thing that they did, or that one flaw that they have, means that I can write them all off. So you hear this in the modern day social media landscape, people talking about icks. And it can be hilarious, but people are making decisions based on these icks, right? Oh, he reached, I don't know. It's kind of funny. And I don't want to minimize people's intuition because the intuition can be real. It can be giving you information. And what I'm always telling my clients is, your intuition is giving you information, but what is it saying? You may be neurodivergent and you may have recognized a pattern, but you need to sit back and say, what am I noticing? Versus saying, oh yeah, he skipped over a puddle so he wouldn't get his sneakers wet, and that's an ick, and now we can't date. Right? I mean, maybe, but what does that mean? And so when we're coaching, we will go deeper and further into some of these things. And for some of my clients, we'll find out that, oh yeah, for sure, that was just a moment where he did something kind of weird and, human, and it's not a problem. Or we'll find out that there was something actually real there. And I remember one client that I worked with, and she dated this guy, and they was compatible on so many levels. There was just so much compatibility on the surface, and he was pleasant and just an all-around good human. But she was like, I just don't have any chemistry with this guy. I don't want him to touch me. I don't want him to kiss me. And this is just, it's not working. And she felt really bad about wanting to say no to a guy who seemed to be everything, and she enjoyed his company, but she was like, I don't think he'll work out because we just don't have chemistry. And what I coached her to do was to find out why, not by asking him. A lot of the work, in fact, often I would tell my clients, you don't need to tell people that you date, that you're working with me, because in many ways that's going to color your ability to observe or to even make your own decisions around the work that you're doing. So what she needed to do was just observe, not just him. Also, that's also one thing that keeps us out of being able to evaluate properly, is we're so busy observing the other person that we're not observing ourselves. We're not observing our own thoughts and our own feelings, which can help you understand the situation that you're in, the person that you're with, the energy between you. Long story short, with her, so she went on more dates and was like really present with herself and present in her body and present in her thinking. And she realized that it had to do with his health and his ability to sort of keep up or what would you say, participate in like really basically athletic activities. That had been happening because they'd gone on several athletic activities, but I said, but she wasn't in awareness that was what it was. She was like, oh, I don't think he can keep up with me physically. And for whatever reason, in my biology and in my chemistry, I need someone who I feel is energetic and super healthy and able to keep up with my physical energy as well. And I'm like, yeah, well, now you've learned something new about yourself. Let's put that down as part of what you value in a partner and that you'll be looking for in the future. And so she could have gone with well, I'm not attracted to him. And so, yeah, I'm just going to move on. And that would have been fine. And she would have been correct to do that. But by taking the time to understand if there was a bias happening, what was going on in her awareness, what was going on in her body, what was going on in her mind, she was able to get information about herself that she could then take into the rest of her dating journey. So that's basically what the halo effect, when you notice it, when you become aware of it, it can help you sort of go on a journey to figure out, oh, this person is very charismatic. I wonder what that's about. And that's what you ask yourself. It's not to say, oh my God, all the charismatic men are narcissists and they're love bombing us and they are, covering up all the things. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And the only way you'll know is to say, okay, I'm just going to observe. I'm just going to be curious about this person. I'm going to be curious about where their energy is coming from, where this particular trait is coming from. Even with flaws, I mean, unless the flaw is like abusive and like obviously, jerky behavior, you can take the time to observe the flaw and make a decision about it with that information, because your partner, whoever your partner is that you choose in the future when you're dating, is going to have flaws. They are. And the more you know about the flaws, the more you see them and are in awareness of them, the better you're going to be able to make an informed decision about whether or not it's a flaw that you can handle, whether or not the person has the capacity to handle their own stuff that they may have going on. So when you're in a marriage, this shows up as dismissing concerns, dismissing behavior, giving grace, ignoring behavior because of their professional success, or because of the fact that they're a good dad, or because they are compatible in certain ways, and you do have a good life together. We've got a good life. Like we're both, professionals, and we're both in the same industry, and we're both, all of these things are good. I don't want to rock the boat in those areas where things are good because of all these other things that are happening. But you can't extend this good thing into areas where real harm may be happening. And so the key here is to say, okay, all of these things are true, but what else is happening that's giving me concern? What's happening that is harming me? What's making me even think about this at all? Once you're thinking about, leaving your partner or quiet quitting your marriage, it means that there are some real issues that need to be resolved. And the first step to resolving them, whether you resolve them on your own or you resolve them with your partner, is to understand what's happening, not minimizing them because of their good qualities or dismissing the presence altogether. And for women in divorce, it tends to look kind of like the same thing as what happens in the marriage, where a woman will try to not make her partner out to be the bad guy. And that's fine. Ideally during a divorce, you don't want to be bad-mouthing your ex everywhere you go. You don't want to do that. However, some people will take that to the extreme where they almost become their partner's PR agency. It's like, no, he's a good person and he's kind and he's lovely and all of these things, wonderful things were happening and all of these things are good. And then almost like selling the world on your ex and selling your kids on your ex and up to the point of lying about where that person actually is. So it's not quite like the full halo effect, and there are a lot of reasons why women will do that while going through a divorce. But some of it is almost still being in that place of disbelief or being in that place where she's still sort of acting the way she was during the marriage, where it's like, well, yeah, but he's all these wonderful things. And so he's going to be a good person when we get divorced. He is a good man, so he's not going to try to take the house. So he's a good man. He's not going to try to take the kids away from me. He might, right? If you don't look at your situation sort of with clear eyes, you might be surprised at what your spouse might try to do during a divorce, and vice versa. So you have the halo effect or you have the horn effect. Just because you and your partner didn't work out doesn't mean that he is now like the narcissist and the devil incarnate, right? You don't want to go either way. You want to take each piece of information that you have as it comes and look at it with clear eyes. So there are a few things that you can do when you are sort of in that, like, where you start to catch yourself using the halo effect to make a person better than you can based on the information that you have. In my coaching program, we call it a kryptonite. Like this, what is your kryptonite? What is the thing, start to be aware of the thing that makes you extend qualities or project qualities on a person that they don't have. And we all have it. At least in my personal experience, I have it. And I think I've seen it with almost all of my clients. And so we try to define it ahead of time. And I'll ask them, do you know what your kryptonite is? Do you know the thing that you want so much in a partner that you're likely to ignore, problems or red flags if they have that? And for some women, it's, oh my God, when that guy shows up and he's just handsome, like movie star handsome, all common sense goes out the window, right? For me, when I was dating, it was like if the man was well-read, oh my goodness, if he was well-read and we could talk about books and he had heard of some of the obscure writers that I loved, oh my God, it was like, just take me home. And it didn't mean that I shouldn't look for a man who was well-read. It just meant that when I did meet a man who was well-read, that wasn't the end of the evaluation. That wasn't the end of the process of deciding whether or not we were compatible and whether or not he was right for me. And I remember I dated one guy, very well-read. We talked about books all the time. Like he would buy books. I don't know how he did this. Like there was a way, apparently there's a way you can buy Kindle books and like send them to people. He would send me Kindle books. Oh my God. Like he would send me books. I would wake up in the morning and there'd be like this new book. And he'd be like, yeah, I really feel like this book would be really good for you, or that you would enjoy. You mentioned this the other day. Here's a book that you would enjoy. And he would buy it and like send it to me in my Kindle. And it was just like, listen, some people like flowers and some people like chocolates. I mean, and I like those things too, but like, get me a good book. Oh my gosh. So that was my fate. And that was my kryptonite. Like every time I met a guy who was well-read or seemed well-read, there was always the temptation to not look beneath the hood at everything else. And I've had clients where it was like their looks. For some other clients, it was the person being a part of their religion because they really wanted someone who was spiritual, someone who was a part of their church. And every time someone showed up who was a Christian and went to their church, they began to ignore all the other red flags. So the first step is to become aware of when you are doing this. Name your kryptonite. What is it? It's not about you being dumb. There's nothing dumb about it. There's nothing stupid about it. This is a cognitive bias that was built into our brains. We use this every day to move through life. If we had to stop every day to put people into very exact categories, like nothing would get done. So our brains have developed this. But you just need to say, in the area of dating or in my relationship or in my marriage or in my friendships, whatever, I'm going to slow down and start to notice where the halo effect might be happening. And see if you can figure out the thing that, like, oh, it's just like that cherry on the cake with people that makes you ignore everything else that's happening. If you can name it, then you can work around it, because that's really the best that you can do, is to work around it. It's not something to cure. It's not something to stop doing. It's just to say, okay, I met this guy. He's very good looking. I know my kryptonite is good looking guys. I'm just going to make sure that I'm not working from the halo effect when I'm trying to decide whether or not he's right for me. So notice when your brain falls into it, and then ask yourself questions. Okay, I remember I think he's kind. How do I know he's kind? What did he do? What am I basing this judgment and this decision on? And then also sort of like challenge times when you project. And some of us are just so good at that. We good people, and we are smart or brilliant or whatever, and we will project that on other people. And that's a good thing to do, to see the best in people. But when you are picking a partner, or when you're trying to decide whether to stay or leave a difficult marriage, or when you're going through a divorce where there are very serious outcomes on the table and you have to negotiate, you want to see clearly. So separate, almost like start to develop you got to develop the ability to see, a person as a mix of all of these quote unquote positive and negative qualities. And that can be true. And I think that's one of the things our brain doesn't like. Our brain wants to sort people into like they're bad or they're good. But people are human, and they have all these things. They can have these amazing qualities and also have some really terrible qualities at the same time, and then have some middling qualities. So developing the ability to see the whole person. You're not going to be able to see the whole person on the first date, maybe not even by the sixth date. Understanding that it's going to take time for me to see the whole person. So maybe I don't rush into committing or going exclusive with people, especially if we're not having dates frequently. I got to spread that out. If they're not available often, or I'm not available often, then it might take longer for me to start to see the whole person. And then finally, when you notice things about a person, you may want someone who's got movie star looks, but if they are also showing up with something you don't want, or not showing up with something that you do need in a partner, not minimizing that. Don't say, oh, well, I don't need that because this, or, I'm being too picky. Don't start that. Just be like, okay, I noticed that they show up with all of this, which I love, and they also don't show up with this, which I don't love. And kind of let that be there. Let that exist. Allow yourself to sort of sit with and consider what those things mean in the long term if you're dating for the long term, or consider what it means if you're only dating casually, or you're like, well, we have a lot of fun and maybe we can just have fun and go on all these fun activities, but I would never marry this person because I couldn't live with someone who had this, particular quality or inability for the long term. Now, some people will be like, well, there are some people that are just really good people, and it's kind of mean to reject them based on this one thing. Well, that's true. They might be a really good person, but if they have a negative quality that makes them incompatible with you, either in the short term or in the long term, you have to be willing to see that. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for that cycle of, oh, everything was wonderful, and then it became terrible, and everything was wonderful, and then it became terrible over and over and over again. And then sometimes it can be hard to, say no or break up the relationship or break up the marriage because I already invested so much. I don't want to start questioning this, or I've been single for so long. I can't keep being this picky. And you can decide that. I just always want my clients to decide with their eyes open, right? Like you can decide to move forward with someone who does have qualities that you don't enjoy. That is an actual choice, but it's better for you to make the choice out of your own conscious freedom. And like, yeah, I see all these things. I see it and I know where it's going, and I've decided that I can handle that. Versus, I'm just not really going to see it. I'm just going to kind of lie to myself that it's not there, which keeps you from having that, for maintaining that relationship long term, because then you don't even prepare yourself. You don't get coaching on the things that you might need to develop to handle that that flaw that you're choosing. So you're choosing it, but you're choosing it in this way where you're like pretending not to see it, which makes you less prepared to handle it. Versus, okay, I can handle it. Let me go make sure I can handle it. Do I need to read some books? Do I need to grow myself in this area? Because maybe this person is, messy and untidy or whatever. And obviously when we get married, they're not likely to change, and I'm going to have to handle that. How do I want to handle that? Are we going to talk about paying for someone to keep the house clean? Or am I going to decide to do it? If you go in with your eyes wide open, the flaw can be there, and you're likely to be able to keep that relationship because you're like, yeah, I saw this. I chose it. I'm okay with it. I know a lot of women don't want to feel like they're being too critical or too hypervigilant or too skeptical when they're dating. And it's not about being skeptical. It's about seeing what you see, naming it, and then making your own personal decision about it. And you making those decisions does not make you to anything. As women, we've been conditioned to like run away from that label. You're to this and you're to that. Like shame is very much used to police a woman's decisions. But just notice that even if you sort of try to please the world, you're still going to live with what you live with in your relationships. And I think choosing relationships that are nourishing to you, that are healthy for you, that are fun and joyful and loving is way more important than what other people think. Okay, so just to recap, we all have the halo effect going on. It's a cognitive bias that's built into our brains, and it keeps us from seeing people as they really are. It keeps us from truly taking in the whole person. Every person is a mix of like flaws and good qualities, vulnerabilities, quirks, imperfections, and wonderful things too. What you really want to do is when you're dating and in your marriage, because the other thing that happens when we're in a marriage is that we just stop seeing the person. We put them in a role. They are in this role. They are husband. They are wife. And we just kind of project all the qualities we put on that role on that person. So whether you're married or divorcing or dating, start slowing down how you think about people, how you look at people, so that you can take in the whole person and you can make decisions that are good for you based on having accurate information, right? So when if you're in a difficult marriage, stop assuming that things are going to work out just because your partner has these good qualities, right? If he has these good qualities, but then you're in an abusive cycle, it may not work out. It might not be good for you. The toll on you might be a lot just to hold on to the good qualities, right? If you're going through a divorce and you're experiencing a lot of things, don't doubt what you're experiencing and what you're seeing based on holding on to the person's good qualities. Like, just because they were a good husband doesn't mean that they're being a good person in the divorce. I mean, it's just never project. It's always about, what is this person doing? If this person is trying to take the kids away from me just so that they don't pay child support, the fact that he paid all the bills when you were married is not change the fact that he's trying to not give you what is within your rights in the divorce, right? So you don't want to mix those two. And when you're dating, yeah, you need to be clear-eyed. You need to take off the rose-colored glasses and be willing to see both your partner's flaws and their wonderful qualities long enough, slowly enough, so that you can make a decision that is right for you. So you can have complete information when you choose a partner. Okay, that's our episode for today. I want to thank you guys for your time and attention. If this speaks to a situation that you have and you would like coaching on it, I want to invite you to schedule a complimentary consultation call with me. You can do that at shadecurry.com/schedule-appointment. And the link to do that is going to be in the show notes. I do have availability for quite a few sales calls over the next few weeks. So pick a time. Let's get on a call and talk about how you can start to get the outcomes that you want, whether you're dating, whether you're divorcing, or you're in a marriage that just feels hard. All right. It's good to talk to you guys today, and I will see you next time.